Podcast of Innovation Summit, recorded on January 30th, 2014 in Juneau, Alaska, is made possible by the Juneau Economic Development Council and 360 North.
To hear from our former representative, Beth Kurtula, as she has, I understand as of yesterday, is officially a civilian. And Beth, but nonetheless, she's given us many, many years of service, and it's really a privilege for us to be able to hear from Beth this morning. But let me give you a little bit of Beth's background, and it's long, but it's I find it very fascinating. Beth's family has a long history in Alaska, starting in 1918 when her grandfather Oscar spent the winter in Nome. In 1935, he returned with his young family to the Matanuska Valley to farm. Beth's father Jay has the honor of being the state's longest-serving legislator and the only legislator to have served as both House Speaker and Senate President. Her mother Joyce was an English teacher and full-time volunteer as Jay's office manager. After growing up as a legislator's child in Juneau and Palmer, Beth earned her BA from Stanford University and her JD from the University of Santa Clara. She worked as an attorney in both private and public practice before running for office. Beth has been elected 7 times to the Alaska House of Representatives from District 3 in Juneau. During her public service, she has been a strong voice for Alaskans retaining control over their resource wealth and responsible development, and has been instrumental in oil and gas decisions. Beth has also been a leader to restore civility, ethics, and nonpartisan decision-making to the legislature. She was the original sponsor of Alaska's world-renowned cruise ship pollution legislation. A trusted and respected leader and member of the Alaska House of Representatives since 1999, Beth served on the House Finance Committee, was Minority Whip for 3 years, and was the House Minority Leader since 2007, the highest rank for a minority member in the House. Beth is a member of the Alaska Native Sisterhood, Camp 2, the Filipino American and the Filipino communities of Juneau, the Alaska Bar Association. Beth owns a very small jewelry-making business and enjoys reading, watching movies, and just being outside with Jim. And Beth is leaving us to take a position as a visiting fellow with the Center for Oceans Solutions at Stanford. So please join me in welcoming Beth Kurtula.
Thank you for that introduction, Brian, and thank you for your work in Juneau. Thank you for JEDC and all of your work. I've seen the progress and the innovation that you've brought to this community and throughout the state, and it's been really I'm in awe of it. I want to thank somebody who's here this morning with me who I really could never have done 15 years of service without, and who really picks up the slack at home, and sometimes that's not so easy, but he is the main innovator in my life, and that's my husband, Dr. Jim Powell. So, get up. I also want to thank 2 friends who are part of this, and one of them on the JEDC board, who when I kind of panicked last night, it's been kind of a long week for me, and said, oh, what do people want to hear about, and what do you think they'd like to know about, helped me, and that's Ken Alper and Jill Ramiel. Ken was on my staff for a long time. Jill's on the JEDC board. Together they own the Silver Bow Inn, and they suggested a few things that were really helpful, so I want to thank them too. Innovation, what an amazing word, what a great word, what a positive human word, and what a hopeful word. When I started thinking about innovation, I started thinking about it on so many different levels, and which was hence my call to Jill and Ken. But I looked at your website, which is pretty incredible. I looked at the idea behind clusters, and Brian and I have spoken about that. And I started to think about how, in my mind, innovation is synonymous with Alaska. Brian told you a little bit of my family's history. My grandfather, Oscar, who was a sailor, ship's engineer, captain, liked to tell the story about how the ship got caught in the ice at Nome, and also liked to point out that he was not the captain of that ship. But, you know, through his innovation, that was bartering with the Walsh brothers, he got that crew through because of the Walsh brothers' cow's milk. To this day, the Walsh brothers are friends of my family, and indeed, one of the sons of the brothers' wives, Don, owns Shoe Fly. So it's all, you know, anytime I step into that store, I think about my grandfather. But I also thought about the early beginnings of Alaska and settlement and the homesteaders, who in my mind are true innovators. You never stepped into a homestead that you didn't see 5 different ways that they had figured out how to do things to survive. You know, I remember seeing a water wheel. Actually, my dad dragged me up the hill in Moose Pass, which is on the Kenai, one time to see an old homesteader's water wheel that he had built to generate his own electricity. I can remember hundreds of examples of jerry-rigged pieces of machinery. And, you know, that's the kind of thing that really is a true innovation. My father came to Alaska when he was 5 years old. He was brought here by his father, Oscar, the sailor, and my grandmother, Elvie. They were Finnish American. Their family had come to America because they knew they had no hope for an education. When I asked my grandmother why she brought her family at a very tender age to Alaska, to a true wilderness, she said, because I wanted them to get an education. But the way they came up was, in my mind, very innovative, and indeed speaks to all of us and you today. During the Depression, FDR built a lot of what we call now alphabet agencies. You know, you had a lot of, like, you know, the Conservation Corps, or, you know, art projects, which I'm so glad to see you guys taking on. Art is a way to build innovation in communities. And you saw the huge, beautiful murals by people like Diego Rivera, which you can still see today across the country. But my parents, grandparents, and my father were influenced by something called the AARC, the Alaska Rural Rehabilitation Corporation, and it was a social experiment. That experiment went into the upper Midwest and looked for people, largely Scandinavian, that they thought could withstand the weather and the wilderness in Alaska. And 60 years later, one of my father's friends, when he was in Washington, D.C., did a little research and came home with a profile of my grandmother. They actually profiled people. They went into the communities. They found people that they thought were hardy and could build build something out of the wilderness, and they put them all together and shipped them literally into the Matanuska Valley, a wilderness. And those people lived in tents the first summer. They drew lots to find the land, and they built the Matanuska Valley. They were a colony. Now, they worked together to do this. They formed a cooperative, largely from the Scandinavian heritage that they had, and they built an amazing agricultural center, and they built an amazing business that's produced a lot of the vegetables for South Central Alaska and most of the milk. And they worked in conjunction with the military so that they could feed the bases. And it was a very productive model that, as all of you know, has completely imploded. As my father, Jay, likes to say, you know, they're going to pave every last inch of good farmland in the Matanuska Valley before this is over. So at the beginning, I think it's a great example of the kind of innovation, cooperation, interdependency that we know is so important and that all of you are leading on. But it's also the cautionary tale. It's the cautionary tale of, if you have an innovative way of doing things, if you know something is working well, then I think you need to figure out the next step of how you continue to innovate, how you continue to help it grow, and don't let it become the Matanuska Valley, because it hurts my heart to see what has happened there to the farms and to the loss of agriculture and to the loss of the dairies. But I'm going to talk just a couple other things and then let you go. I love the holistic nature of what you're doing. in my work for the last 15 years in government, all too often what you see, especially in state agencies, not to pick on them because this is changing, but is this siloing of how we do things. And it's not the only area where we see that. You know, in your daily life you see it. My second example where I hate the siloing is in medicine. My parents are now elderly, and I can't tell you how frustrating it is to have the heart doctor going off on medication on the one hand, and then the lung doctor on the other, and you know, who hurts? My mother. It's the same example with anything, but in government in particular, we tend to go into our own expertise and just stay there. And the cross-referencing, the innovation, the ability to talk across those agencies and to flatten it out, and in the legislature, again, that reaches right into the ability to talk across party lines, the ability to lay down that sword and stop being so bitterly partisan is going to become increasingly important. And in my mind, all of you are the great hope for the future. The innovators among us are the ones who will lead us out of this mess that Congress and across the nation you can see in government. So we really need you. I'm really glad that you're here talking about this. I don't pretend to understand it all. I gotta read one of the quotes that's on your website that I just absolutely loved, and then I'll conclude. The thing that I liked the best on your quote was from another lawyer a little bit higher up than I will ever be, Oliver Wendell Holmes. And what he said is, many ideas grow better when transplanted into another mind than the one where they sprang up. One of the things my dad taught me was, and it really helped because he was, I think, almost always in a majority. I have always been in the minority for 15 years. But what he taught me was, you know, you don't have to have your name on it to do something good. And I can see the joy of having had a few good ideas and then seeing them go off by themselves through other hands to become important pieces of legislation. And if you can step across that Rubicon and not need that credit, as all of you I know do with each other, that helps. And that's something that you can help teach politics. So in closing, I think maybe one of the most important things we do with innovation is to keep innovating ourselves. I started out, I thought about it this morning, like when I was a child, what did I really, really want to do? And what I really wanted to do was to be an astronaut. And that lasted for a short while. And then I wanted to be a nun. That lasted even a shorter while. And there's a funny story about that, but later. Anyway, that lasted shorter. Then pretty early on, I wanted to be a lawyer. And as I was standing in line with one of my friends who was a lawyer at a bank a long time ago, he looked at me and he said, I don't know about you, but I blame my father for this. And I blame my dad too, because as an immigrant's child, it was all about education. You're going to be a lawyer. Your sister's going to be a doctor. My sister was smarter. She's an anthropologist. She said, yeah, no, that's not what I'm going to do. But the chance to innovate, the chance to grow, the chance to be something different and to try to improve upon yourselves and thus improve everyone around you in the world is something that I really cherish. And it's one of the only reasons why I would leave a community that I love, leave the job, which I love, and leave the legislature, which I also love. But for the chance to go and find out more and interesting and innovative ways of working with our ocean issues and trying then to learn enough so that I could come home and be part of innovating with our wonderful communities is really rare and fleeting and something that I felt I needed to do. So my ask of you is that you reach out and help us all innovate, and that my hope for you is that you will be successful, because we have to have it. We will not succeed as a state or even a nation if this doesn't happen. So I'm very proud of you, proud to have been here. Thanks for listening to me this morning. That's nice.
thank you, Beth, for 15 years. Let's give her a big round of applause. Thank you for your service.
Have a great conference. You've got great speakers. Thank you.
Next, we have one of our most popular sessions from previous summits, and that is our Innovators panel, where we're going to be able to experience, talk about, learn about people that are innovating on a day-to-day basis in business. And then later, we have added an element of innovators in government. But now it's all about the private sector. And to lead this session, I want to introduce Elena Peterson from Hani. Elena?
I was hoping that Brian would mispronounce my name like he normally does, and I could make a joke, but he didn't, so good job, Brian. Yeah, my name is Elena Peterson. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator at Hani, and I, at this point, want to invite our panelists to come join me on stage. And as they come up here, I just want to let you know, these are some of our finalists from the Path to Prosperity competition, and we had planned to have a few more on the panel this morning, but they were coming from Haines and couldn't make it due to boat and plane issues. So I apologize for that. I also want to thank JADC for allowing us to be featured on day 2 of the Innovation Summit. This competition has been a real great program to be a part of, and I'm really excited to be able to announce the 2 winners later this evening. So over the course of the last 4 months, I've learned a lot from these individuals. These entrepreneurs each have a unique story and a unique perspective on what it takes to start or run a small business. But one thing they do have in common is they're each very innovative, and they have recognized an opportunity within their community to develop a business that solves some problems but also makes a profit while doing it. I'll let them tell you more about that and their stories, but let me tell you how they got here. In June of 2013, Hani and the Nature Conservancy launched the first Path to Prosperity business development competition for Southeast Alaska. The competition aims to launch growth companies that will increase local employment, have a positive social and economic impact on their community, promote sustainable use of local resources, and increase entrepreneurial know-how and business leadership in Southeast Alaska. So this competition consists of 2 rounds, and in round 1, we invited participants to submit a description of their business idea or concept, and we received over 59 applicants this year, which was a success in itself. And from those 59, 12 were chosen as the top ideas, and those 12 were invited to come to Juneau, where they participated in a boot camp weekend, and that allowed them to get started on their business plan, talk with industry professionals, and all sort of start on the same equal playing field as they develop their business plan. And so in round 2, they worked diligently over a few months to put together their business plans, and those were judged by a panel of 5 independent judges, and the judges selected their top 2, who, as I said before, will be announced later this evening. And the winners will receive a $40,000 award that they will use towards technical assistance and consulting services that they identified as necessary in their business plan to get their business to where they want it to be. So I'll now hand it over to John Blanchard, who is the Dean of the UAS School of Management, and he will be moderating for the panel today. Thank you, John.
Good morning. It's a real pleasure to be here. Again, I want to commend the innovation and the partnership between the Nature Conservancy and Hani to create this concept of putting a business plan competition together, and the tremendous turnout that they had in terms of a response with 60 different plans being submitted into a competition. And what we have here are a representative sample of the 12 finalists, the 12 business plans that were accepted to go into the final round. Later today, the top 2, the actual winners, will be announced. But I don't know at this point who they are, and I don't really care to, but in my mind, they're tremendous winners in and of themselves. It takes tremendous confidence and commitment to step out and decide that I'm going to pursue something that's my passion and my dream, and I'm going to see it come true and fruition, and I'm going to put my resources together, and I'm going to step aside from the opportunity costs that I might take because there are other job opportunities out there, but I'm going to do something that I feel truly and I'm passionate about. And so I commend these individuals, I commend all the participants, and again, I commend the originators from the Nature Conservancy in Ha'ani for making this happen. So we'll start today just by asking each of the finalists here to kind of describe what it is they're proposing. We'll go through that. We'll ask a few questions then, and then we'll have a period where we'll open up for the audience to ask any questions they might have for the individuals here. So, Mark, you're first, so I suggest maybe you go first.
Thanks, John, and I just want to thank Ha'ani and the Nature Conservancy for the opportunity to be part of this competition. It's been a great learning experience. I was a little concerned when the speaker last night said these things don't work.
I heard that.
Yeah, so I hope that doesn't portend anything. I'm sure it's just a cautionary note. But I was also honored to be able to serve you guys ice cream last night. Hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was my first wholesale sale, which is very exciting. And that was my business plan proposal. We started in September with a retail operation selling coffee and baked goods and ice cream. And we are just by the Federal Building, if you want to check us out during or after the summit. But we've been making ice cream there and selling at retail. But I've been thinking for a while it'd be great to move into wholesale ice cream production. So if we're awarded as one of the finalists, we'd like to pursue that. We're going to pursue it anyway, but that would really be a boost to us. But about 5 years ago, I started making rhubarb sherbet. And I want to put a shout out to the Juneau Arts and Humanities Council, which is a very innovative organization here in our town, who started these farmers markets, right? We don't have farms in Juneau, but they thought, well, why not, let's try this. So I, with my daughter, who was 6 at the time, we started making some sherbet and selling it at the farmers market as a way to kind of help her with customer service skills and math skills. And we first started making raspberry sherbet with local raspberries, and I thought, well, what about rhubarb? Let's try it with rhubarb. And people loved it even more than the raspberry. So I've been making this for a while now. This summer, I started doing it at a food truck, and then we opened the store. But I really am passionate about rhubarb. It's a great product, and it can be, I think, Southeast Alaska's agricultural crop. It grows so well. I mean, you can't kill the stuff here. It grows so well. And since we have a cloudy climate, you can have a summer where it never bolts. You can have continuous harvest of the plant throughout the summer. So we're hoping to go into wholesale production of rhubarb sherbet and other ice cream. We also make some, I see Jeff Larson in the back, we also make some ice cream with local beer, with Alaska Brewing beer. So try to incorporate local ingredients in our ice cream, and primarily rhubarb is what we'd like to do. So thanks again, and hope you have a great summit.
I'm Steve Helgeson. I'm from Wrangell, and my partner is Kevin Skeek here. And our proposal has to do with a startup guitar building business in Wrangell. Our aim is to produce premium solid wood acoustic guitars that feature local Sitka spruce and red cedar for soundboard material. We're also very interested in the value capture, maximum value capture from a local natural resource, Sitka spruce. And of course, producing some good jobs, really, life-sustaining jobs in small communities. So that's the core of our proposal.
Thanks, Steve. My name's Kevin, as he said, and I got to say my passion for building guitars really didn't start until after about a few years of playing the guitar. And it wasn't until I earned an internship at Juneau Alaska that this all started. I was an intern, and I was in corporate communications, and it was my job to handle all the department's Christmas cards. And when I did that, I actually was way over my head. And I had to go in on a Saturday morning when the whole building was closed, and I had to ask Ken Sutherland. I was like, hey, can you give me a key? I'm really behind. So he gave me a key, went in there, and it wasn't until I went ahead and I was printing out all the labels for the Christmas cards, and I'm sitting there like going along, and all of a sudden I see Bob Taylor Guitars. Wow, okay, that's pretty cool. And then I go along, and then later on I find I see Chris Martin of Martin Guitars. I'm like, whoa, wait, hold on, what's going on here? And I go ahead and I find out what office it was, and then it was the vice president's office. I go ahead and I asked the vice president. I was like, I see that you're mailing out like Christmas cards to like Bob Taylor and Chris Martin and like Dave Berryman. Like, I mean, how do you know these people? Oh yeah. Hold on, Kevin. That reminds me of something. He calls up Ron. Hey Ron, we need to figure out who's going down to the NAMM show, and I just got reminded of that, so just keep that in mind. And I was like, hold on, wait. You're talking about like North American Music Manufacturers Show? Are you talking about like Chris Martin, who's like the 6th generation owner of Martin Guitars, and like Bob Taylor, who started like in 1974 in his, it was crazy. I basically spilled my guts to him, and he was like, okay, Kevin, I understand. All right, okay. I was like, you got to send me. I need to be the guy. Here I am, this intern, and nobody knows more about guitars on the 4th floor than I do. And so when I went there, he talked to my boss and allowed me to go. And when I went there, I realized that these manufacturers were using just a tiny portion of our Sitka spruce, the ones that grow here. And they were making, these $110,000 guitars out of just a little bit of our wood. I was like, whoa, wait, hold on. Explain that again to me. And they were like, well, yeah, this guitar, it's $110,000. Yeah. You're using our wood. Yeah. Okay, there's something wrong with this picture here. Why aren't we making guitars? That's when it all sparked for me when I was an intern. And and so I put that on the back burner for a while, but it wasn't until Path to Prosperity, this competition came up, that I realized, wait, okay, rural communities, okay, check. Using our natural resources, okay, check. In a sustainable way. Yeah, got it. And it wasn't until all that happened that I finally met Steve. Because when we made the top 12, I looked at Steve and I was like, wait, who's this guy? He wants to build guitars too? And and so we met up, and then here we are. So that's a really short version. I could really go into 45 minutes explaining it all. I mean, that's just how passionate I am about it. But I'm going to go ahead and let it go. But that's how I get to sit here in front of all you right now. So, all right, thank you guys.
Well, I'm Wes Tyler, and my wife Susan is here, and we own and operate Icy Straits Lumber, and we are passionate about wood also. Every time I go out and fall a tree, I'm watching that tree go down, and I'm thinking about the many products that come out of that tree. And so we've worked in Juneau there for a number of years, developing a lot of different products. Some of you have seen them that we do, and our main thing is we're starting a store in Juneau here to be able to showcase the materials that come out of the trees that we cut. And we are for utilizing every piece of that tree you can use. And I know in many places, and old sawmills around, where you'd have scrap lumber here and scrap pieces of wood there. Well, every scrap that we have goes to something, and we make sure that it gets there. But our goal is to be able to showcase this stuff on a broader basis. We do operate in a very remote section out there in Juneau, and it's just hard for everybody to see the stuff that can be made out of the wood that comes out of our backyard. And we're really excited about it, and we just want to share this these fine products with a population that can appreciate it, and so that's why we're in here trying to expand our opportunities here.
Well, I'm here to help him, and this past summer, I have heard so many great speeches since I've been here, and I do believe this conference has definitely accomplished what it set out to do, because it has been very innovative to us. And he comes from a forest industry. I can't even begin to tell you the passion that Wes has had ever since we first got married. We do log cabins and house materials, and then we've taken into it's been one step at a time, but now furniture. We're using slabs to make slab furniture, and we last summer started this store in Juneau just to see what a response it would be, and it's been overwhelmingly accepted and great, and people come in and whoa, nobody realizes that we're doing that on an island 40 miles from Juneau. Everything has to be barged in, and most everything, unless it stays local, has to be barged back out again. So we have to be innovative in finding other uses for not only the wood, but the biomass and the other products that can come out of anything that's left over. So Wes goes out there and he finds a really nice slab. It goes into it can go into a desk or a mantle or an end table, coffee table, you name it. And we have things just very, very creative that we've been able to do with everything. And one of the things that has really been, aspiration to me is we've really wanted to get more into the pellets or the bio bricks. We've done a lot of research on that, and that is a real direction, because the cost to heat our homes in those small communities is astronomical, and anything that you can do to bring down the cost for heating and fuel source in these small communities, it helps everybody. And it is a trickle down economics. If you can work people in these small communities, it goes back into the community. Working people are happier people. They're able to support their families, to do things that they want to do. Then they can create ideas and expand upon them also. So that's our passion, is to be in a small community. And I came from Atlanta, Georgia, and I would never go back to live. I'll go back to visit, but I always say that he rescued me from the big city, and we've been living remote for 43 years now, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So thank you very much, and this has been a great innovation summit.
It's quite a testimony to the theme that Thor was discussing yesterday about the value added on the various products. You take the spruce, and we've got guitars, we've got furniture, we've got pellets, we've got high-end alternative uses. Mary Jill Waits talked yesterday, said before you really start out on a business plan, you got to know what your market is. And I'd like to ask, how do you know your market is there? In kind of response to that comment that she made yesterday. Maybe we would start with you, because you were speaking about a fairly diversified market for your products.
Well, you have to start somewhere, and so how we started was by doing a few home shows, and to see the response that would come out of the home shows. And there was just always so many people around our booth, So, we thought, whoa, somebody must like it. And I guess there's been so many comments back to us, and you have to listen to people. and see what they have to say. And I really like that comment that was on the website that, somebody else might give us an idea and then we go with it. And what I'm hoping is that maybe we can give somebody an idea and they can go with it. And so, when people put their heads together, there's just no telling what might come out of it. But the next step was, of course, word of mouth. And, we didn't know if we should grow, if we should stay small. But what we found, there's a lot of outlying communities outside of Juneau, and people like to use local product. And there was, SEAC did a feasibility study, and it was determined that, local people do like to use local products. And so we have built upon that. We took that. So last year when I came into Juneau, and I wish I had a movie camera on everybody that came into the store, because you do this where? How in the world can you operate out there? And well, when you've been doing it for 43 years, you find innovative ways. And just like you were speaking about, he can rig more things up. We had one couple that built it was a 20 by 30 cabin with a loft out in the boonies. And I asked Wes, I said, how in the world did they get those timbers up in the air? There was just two of them. And every once in a while, they would have, somebody come help them. Well, they rigged up trees and pulleys, and these timbers were big timbers. And it was a log house that, we did with the double tongue and groove. And so, innovative people can go innovative places, I guess. So anyway, but that's how you find out the market is just people's responses back.
Excellent. Thank you. And Kevin and Stephen, you're in two very different locations, Hoonah and Wrangell. How does your business plan come together? And you're in a fairly competitive market, guitars. There's Epiphone and Fenders. How do you compete in a very competitive market too?
Well, it's a good question. We do know quite a bit about the market. There's a pretty robust market for stringed instruments in this country. Big players are Yamaha, Fender's the largest fretted instrument builder. They own a number of brands, Gibson, Martin, Taylor. The numbers from 2012 demonstrate that Yamaha and their stringed instrument division grossed $1.6 billion. They were the leader in 2012. Fender grossed somewhere on the order of $800 million, and Gibson and Martin and Taylor were behind that. So it's a pretty big market. It's a well-established market. We're looking at a pretty small sector, which would be high-end instruments that sell for in excess of $1,500. In that particular segment in 2012, nearly 53,000 units were sold in the United States. Our projected numbers for year one are 44 units. So I think while it does take a certain amount of bravado to think that you can go up against Martin and Gibson, we're going to give it a try, and I think we can probably sell 44 guitars, and by year three, we're hoping to sell 150. So, okay, 160. Sorry, yeah, big difference there. But we're looking for our guitars to wholesale at around $3,500 to $4,000 a piece, which is pretty average for guitars in this particular class. So. We've looked pretty carefully at it. I think it's a well-established market, but we're going to have to fight to get a little piece of it.
Thank you. In a common assembly manufacturing location?
We're going to build the guitars in Wrangell. Kevin is going to move to Wrangell, yes. And we're going to work together from there.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And Mark, how about yourself?
What's the question?
How do you know the market? How do you know there's a
market?
market for your product? How have you studied it?
Well, we started, like I said, at very small scale with my daughter at these farmers markets, and I think with the light bulb really hit that I could do this at a larger level when we did it the 4th of July. We did a benefit for the Northern Lights Church and sold rhubarb, sherbet, and sorbet. And I had never scooped so much ice cream. I was scooping constantly that day, and we raised $2,000 for the church that day. Wow. So I don't know, something about rhubarb, it's like it has these nostalgic properties that people, when they taste it, they remember their aunt's rhubarb pie, or they remember when they were a kid, they just took the stalk and dipped it in sugar. So I think we're kind of capturing that with the sherbet.
Excellent. I'm going to ask one more question, and we'll open it up. This competition with Path to Prosperity is going to continue for another 2 years. There were about 60 plans submitted in this first round. They anticipate significantly larger numbers in the next rounds. What have you learned, and what might you say in encouraging people that might be considering a business concept at this point, and their level of participation in this program? Go ahead. Yeah, Kevin.
To those that are wondering, or maybe if they should, I get to fulfill my dream, to build guitars. It wouldn't have been possible. I put this thing on the back burner for years, and it wasn't until this competition came by that I finally met Steve, who we were talking about diversity here. Look at Steve and I. I mean, the demographics are different, but I met him, and I now get to build guitars. If Path to Prosperity didn't come along, I wouldn't get a chance to do that. I'm looking forward to 2014, where I get to build, 44 guitars? Yeah. All right. Where we get to do that. And I look at it where, okay, I don't have to go to my square building, going to my square office, sitting at my square desk, looking at my square screen, printing off square pages. No. Sorry, I'm sorry. But I'm telling you, I get to help build an instrument that somebody, whether or not they connected to it, and they get right about how, whether it was bad or good, I mean, when they connect to it, I mean, you know what happened just right now? Seriously, what happened? A musician was born. That just happened. Who knows, they might be the Beatles. Not the Beatles, of course, they already happened. But we don't know what's going to happen. But you know what? Steve and I, we get the chance to go ahead and make one of those instruments where they get to express themselves more than they ever could. So with Path to Prosperity in this competition, I get to do that. And I hope the people that enroll in this competition, and you always had a dream of what you want to do it. Because all you got to do is just submit it. That's awesome. You might meet somebody else that has the same vision and same dream as you do. So just do it. I hope to see 120 applicants. Gosh, that's going to be tough, though. But, I mean, that's good. I'm telling you, that's how I see it.
Excellent. Sue or Wes, care to?
Well, I'd just like to say that I really appreciate the Path to Prosperity. Some of us old guys that have been out in the woods forever needed to learn a lot of things, and they brought such a pile of expertise in there for us to learn from, people that knew things that we needed to learn from. And I just thought the information that we gathered there was just invaluable, and makes us much smarter at what we're attempting to do. So I really appreciate that.
I'll have to add a little bit to that. It's kind of like when we've been trying to figure things out, every day we think, whoa, we were back in college, you know. And so, and being isolated for so many years, you didn't have the internet. You know, we spent 12 years, we didn't have phones, we had CBs. There was a CB in our marine radio in the office that actually connected to Wrangell. And so, you know, living remote, we were away from a lot of things that could have been innovative to us. And so it has been just fantastic to go back, and it makes you want to reach out more. And so one of the things I'm going to be reaching out to a lot more people that I didn't know cared. And so, I'm going to be contacting the University of Alaska. I was hoping, I've had so many people stop in our showroom, and they want to know how to build a log cabin. And so, we have built them 10 years ago. One of the first ones we built it on a trailer, and it was in the parade here in Juneau. And, they had some people dress up, to be on there, the can-can dancers or whatever they were, and, sourdough, and was in the parade on 4th of July, pulling it down the road. And there's just, so many things that you can do. And we really have learned a lot. I'm going to be reaching out to the Small Business Administration, the different, the Nature Conservancy, SEAC. They're there to help people. And I've never really realized that so much before, that, we would wait for somebody to come to us. But, now I know that we need to be proactive, and that we need to take ideas that people give us and then share them with other people and see what they want to do. Living in a small community, it is important to develop these small communities, because they're real people. They love their communities, and they need jobs. And most people that are running these businesses out there, they are contributing back to the communities. And there's a lot to learn, and we want to learn as much as we can, and hopefully be able to contribute back also.
Thanks, Sue. Mark, anything you want to weigh in on that last words to potential business plan competitors?
Yeah, I would just encourage anybody that's interested to think big, think outside the box. You don't have to be doing something with wood. You could do something with something that you might overlook in your community, like rhubarb. But I guess I wanted to just say, is the last question?
Yeah.
Something that I'm struggling with, and that maybe in the future competitions, is how do you find a mentor? I'm just making this up as I go along, and it'd be great to have, and I have a few people that have done some mentoring with me, but I don't know how you find a mentor in the business world. I mean, maybe that's what these clusters are about, but it seems like, and I come from Big Brothers Big Sisters, that's part of my background, but I think thinking about ecosystems, that's the way knowledge has always been, translated, is through, people like grandparents or parents with kids, and that's how knowledge keeps building in society, passed down. So how do new entrepreneurs find these mentors, and how does that work? I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out, and maybe if that could be part of the future competitions, that might be helpful for others.
Yeah, thank you. We'd like to open it up for any questions that people from the audience might have. Panel here. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well done, everybody. I'm a small business owner as well, and so I have a question for you. Outside of the waking up at 12, 3 o'clock in the morning and going, oh my gosh, I got to do this, for all my markets, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What do you wake up in the middle of the night and have that inspiration that, ooh, if only I had a little bit of seed money, this will help me cross over on that path to prosperity that I've been hiking on this entire time. This will give me those wheels to move a little bit faster. I can make that extra jump. For each one of you, what do you see as that little bit that you wake up with inspiration in the middle of the night or middle of the afternoon? You're driving around, you go, oh, if I could only, I just don't have time for that, but if I could have a little bit of help, I know I can overcome that hurdle. What do each one of you see as that as your little potential?
Sue?
Well, boy, that hits right home with me, because I'm always waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and thinking about it. So you're not alone. But what it would do for us is when you're busy, and you any owner of any small business knows that it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's I mean, like, you know, well, you have to sleep. So, but other than that, you are thinking, you know, you're talking to people, you're preparing. But what it would do for us is there's a lot of technical assistance within what we're doing that we just do not have time to do ourselves. And one of them is going the next step, you know, because what we are doing, we've been supplying, you know, wood products, and we are thought more of as a lumber store. Somebody might call in and we fill the orders, we do special cuts, and then, you know, we try to get them a package together. But our next step is the Alaska Legacy Homes and Products. And, you know, there is a legacy in the wood up here. You know, we have decided people, you know, local people, you know, do love to buy local products. And so we wanted to, you know, give it a name that doesn't sound like another lumber company, because it's not. And, you know, when we first got married 43 years ago, you know, we would stop at Lindahl Cedar Homes and some of the other home places. So we want to go the next step in creating our line of homes, but we don't have the time that it takes to do all the technical support that goes along with that. So that is the thing that would help us, is putting these into a package. So you've got a shell only, you have a shell that is weathered in, and then you have a shell and your weathered in and your interior package of paneling, molding, and then, of course, if they want furniture, we can go that route too. It also, designers, you know, we've been doing a lot of the designing. We do work with a lot of the architects and engineers, but you know, to be able to draw up our own plans, that's a whole nother field, and everything takes time, and of course it costs a lot to hire architects, and that's why we've been trying to do a lot of it ourselves. But being able to use some of that that technical support grant funds would be very, very beneficial, and bring in other people's ideas again. So that's one of them.
Kirk, thanks for the question, Kirk. I wake up in the middle of the night worried, not thinking about innovations, but I guess what I've been trying to do, and I find that I get my best ideas when I'm in the pool. And I've read about this, like, you know, these people have these breakthrough ideas. It comes when you're in this kind of relaxed state. You have some intense thinking, but then you kind of let it go. And so I get some of my best ice cream ideas in the pool, but I'm just kind of letting it go. So I'm just trying to make the time for myself. Yeah, I agree with Sue. It's all consuming, these endeavors, but you got to take time for yourself. And in those moments of clarity, when you're relaxed, when you're exercising or you're meditating or whatever, I think that's when innovation can happen, for me, at least.
Good.
I can also relate to the number of hours it takes to run a small business. I don't currently own a business, but I had a woodworking business for 23 years. And I currently have a full-time job. So for me, the composition of our business plan that I was involved in happened between about 3 in the morning and 7 in the morning. And that was a good time for me to really focus and concentrate on what I was doing. I think, at least in the place we are with our business right now, what is carrying it along is just basically starting to do it, quite frankly, just taking the first step forward. We have a lot of what we need. So it's not, at this point, a matter of capital for us. We have a lot of the resources that we need. It's simply a matter of turning the key and going.
I've had 2 businesses before, and I got to tell you that I know that we're talking about entrepreneurship and things like that, and of course the book that we got, Art to the Start, you know, I read this line and it made so much sense, all right? I want all of you to know that entrepreneur is not a job title. It's a state of mind. You got to understand, I've already lost 2 businesses where I started, but I tried out renting mopeds to people in Juneau off the cruise ship. And I was like, oh, this is great, this is going to be wonderful. And then I get down there, I'm all ready, I got 3 mopeds ready to rent, and all of a sudden I'm be like, it's raining sideways. Of course you don't want to ride this, you're like, and excuse me, but you're like over 50, you know? And I didn't look at my demographics that well. And I was like, okay, all right, scratch that one. All right, what else am I going to do? And then I go ahead and I was like, okay, I want to have a smoothie shop. And that didn't go as well either. But that doesn't mean, like, when you're laying there in bed and what keeps you up at night, actually, you know what keeps me up at night is the excitement, not the worry. It's the excitement of knowing that, man, if I could just do this tomorrow, if I could go ahead and if I could accomplish that, yeah, it would be great. Oh, I see it in my head. That's what keeps me up is the excitement. You got to keep swinging for the fence, man. I mean, you got to keep going over it. Whether you strike out or not, you just got to keep going. That's what keeps me up at night. And right now, yeah, I'm not a business owner right now. But I'll tell you, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be. But those are the things. And remember that. I don't look at entrepreneur. I didn't say, hey, I want to grow up and be an entrepreneur and have it as a job title and wear it as my badge. No. Entrepreneur is a state of mind. And you got to understand that.
Wow, excellent answer. Any additional questions, panelists? Well, I want to thank Wes and Sue and Kevin and Steve, Mark. I think they're an excellent representation of the quality candidates of the business plans that have been submitted. I wish you all the best, and I encourage you to follow your dreams. Fantastic job. Thank you.
Podcast of Innovation Summit, recorded on January 30th, 2014 in Juneau, Alaska, is made possible by the Juneau Economic Development Council and 360 North.